Has you ever found yourself feeling, truly stuck? Just caught in patterns that seem to repeat, no matter what you do? Or maybe weighed down by experiences that feel so incredibly real, it's like there's no way out. For you, our listener, who shared these fascinating sources, just imagine for a second, maybe a shortcut, a different way of seeing things that could somehow loosen those knots and reveal a surprising kind of freedom.
That's exactly the profound territory we're stepping into today. Our source text really dives deep into this concept of emptiness, but not importantly as just nothingness or a void.
Not nothingness.
No, it's presented as a dynamic, liberating path.
So our mission in this deep dive is really to unpack how our sort of fundamental ways of looking at the world actually shape our experience.
Yeah.
And, crucially, how shifting these, deep-seated perceptions can potentially free us from suffering. And this isn't about dry philosophy, is it?
Not at all. It's intended to be practical, experiential, insights that can really change your relationship with yourself and, well, everything around you.
So we've tried to distill the material you provided to offer a framework, maybe, for personal discovery, helping you see what's truly important in this powerful text.
Okay, so let's get right into that core idea. Our source suggests that in every single moment, you are either looking at experience, yourself, the world, in a way that creates or even compounds suffering, what's often called dukkha, that sense of unease.
A dissatisfaction, yeah.
You're right. Or you're looking in a way that, well, to some degree, frees you.
That immediately grabs me. Because most of us, I think, have these incredibly deep-seated habits, don't we? Yeah. These automatic ways of seeing things.
Exactly. We view things in ways that actually fabricate and tighten that dukkha. It's like our minds are just running on old programming.
Autopilot, yeah. Right. And even when we think we're just being with things as they are, there are often these hidden views, these assumptions that things really are as they appear, inherently solid and fixed.
And that makes it so difficult to actually move beyond them.
So how do we even start to shift something that ingrained?
Well, that's the path, isn't it? Insight meditation, and maybe the whole of the Dharma, can be seen as cultivating these skillful ways of looking, ways that specifically lessen dukkha and bring about liberation.
It's about gently, persistently retraining the mind.
To see with more clarity, less reactivity, less getting caught up.
Okay, so if retraining is the goal, where do we begin? The source really emphasizes flexibility and also dealing with that voice of self-doubt. It introduces emptiness, śūnyatā, as the middle way. Not things existing, not things not existing, but rejecting those extremes. Why is that middle path so crucial?
Absolutely. The source points to a key delusion, seeing this mirage-like world as either totally inherently real or as completely non-existent. Neither extreme gets it right.
Liberation lies beyond that binary, then.
Precisely. Śūnyatā invites us to see that phenomena aren't solid, fixed things, nor are they just nothing. They arise interdependently. They're empty of that inherent separate existence we project onto them.
And to grasp this, the practice needs to be flexible.
Yeah, very much so. And encourages open-minded experimentation. It's definitely not a rigid dogma you just have to believe.
I really like that idea of flexibility. And it gives us a kind of nuanced way to work with suffering, doesn't it? Like sometimes maybe seeing things as empty can just dissolve the suffering. Zap.
It can happen, yeah. Sounds amazing, but sometimes it works like that.
But other times, it's really important to just allow yourself to feel the pain fully as part of being human before trying to see it as empty.
Or even the other way around. You might see the emptiness first, the lack of solidity, and then let the feeling come back, but hold it differently, maybe more lightly.
So there's no single prescription.
Yeah.
Which is probably a relief for many people.
That flexibility is absolutely key. And, it anticipates that common reaction people have when they hear about these deep ideas. Wow, how could I ever realize something like that? That wave of self-doubt.
Yeah, I'm not good enough, or this is too advanced for me feel.
Right, and the source is very clear. That kind of painful self-doubt, self-criticism, it's just destructive. It paralyzes you. So finding ways to kind of disempower those claims right at the start of the path is vital.
It's an act of self-compassion, really. Clearing the ground so insight can actually grow.
Exactly. You need that foundation.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Shifting how you relate to your own mind from the get-go. And speaking of the mind, the source talks about the journey through samadhi, that unification of mind. It describes it as involving progressively less fabrication. Can you walk us through that?
Sure. So samadhi, while it is a state that's cultivated, a constructed state, it's understood as this spectrum, states involving less and less mental churning, less fabrication, and crucially reduced craving.
So the deeper the samadhi, the deeper the letting go.
That's the idea. For instance, as it develops, you might experience piti, this intense, sometimes physical bliss or rapture, but then even that gets released for something quieter, more fulfilling sukha, a settled happiness.
And then even letting go of that.
Yes. Then clinging to that gets released as an even more satisfying peacefulness opens up. And it keeps refining towards profound stillness, equanimity. It shows how even our attachment to pleasant states is gradually released, leading towards deeper freedom.
What's really fascinating there is that samadhi itself isn't just a nice feeling. If you look at it skillfully, it actually offers insights into how fabrication works, into dependent arising.
It becomes a direct window into how the mind constructs experience.
Which brings us right to the malleability of perception, how we can deconstruct differences that seem so solid. The source points out that our attention tends to fabricate and inflate differences, right?
Yeah.
Making them seem stark when maybe they aren't.
Yeah, a great example given is the difference between being on retreat and everyday life.
Oh, right. That one.
We tend to make it this huge divide. But if you look closely, the actual activities, walking, sitting, eating, thinking, meditating, they're pretty similar elements, just in different proportions.
It's our story about the difference that makes it seem so massive.
Exactly. Our minds solidify the distinction.
And I love the bliss of lunch example, too. This idea that we imagine lunch is going to be this continuous state of bliss.
Right, this mind-painted picture.
But if you pay really close attention, like through mindful eating, you notice the pleasant taste sensations are actually pretty sporadic.
Yeah, they come and go. And they're often outnumbered by just neutral sensations, the texture, the temperature, the feeling of chewing.
It shows how the mind kind of joins the dots, doesn't it? Creating a smoother, more pleasant narrative than the raw data suggests.
It really highlights this malleability of perception beautifully. And with practice, the source says, even unpleasant vedana, those raw feelings or sensations, can sometimes be transformed, experienced as pleasant or neutral.
Wow. So Vedana are, at least to some degree, what the mind makes of them.
Which raises a really interesting question. If our internal feelings are malleable, what about how we see other people?
Yes, it extends there too. Our perception of others depends entirely on our own mind, our siddha, our mental state. It's colored by our projections, our history.
Meaning that the other person isn't this fixed, independent entity we usually assume they are. They are, in this view, empty of that kind of inherent existence.
And that insight allows us to actually practice choosing how we see them, even strangers or people we find difficult. We can choose to cultivate seeing them as friends.
Because our perception isn't fixed. It's something we can actively work with.
Okay, so building on that, let's talk about dissolving blame and unpacking our personal stories. Blame, whether it's aimed at ourselves or others, seems to really rigidify things, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. It locks down a view of the situation, solidifies our sense of me, the victim or perpetrator, or them, the cause of the problem. It becomes this encrusted negative view, as the text calls it.
And that just perpetuates the suffering, the dukkha. It keeps us stuck in that rigid frame.
Like trying to navigate with blinders on, yeah.
So how does this understanding help us deal with blame? The source says focusing only on self-responsibility can actually be too narrow.
Right. It constricts the view. It makes us miss the huge range of other contributing factors. Maybe you were just exhausted. Maybe external pressures were immense. Maybe it was just conditions coming together in a certain way.
Things we couldn't possibly control.
Exactly. So by broadening our way of looking, including all these diverse inner and outer conditions, we can start to dissolve those painful, fixed self-views. And we even begin to see directly that this solid, independently existing self we blame, or that feels blamed, it actually can't be found when you look for it.
That opens up a path beyond just judging ourselves or others.
And it also challenges the stories we tell about ourselves, doesn't it? Our source points out these narratives are central to our identity, but they're ultimately empty. They aren't inherently true in some fixed way.
You mean how we tell the story of our past can change?
Completely. Depending on your current mood, your perspective, who you're talking to, the same events can be framed totally differently, remembered differently, felt differently.
So the story isn't one fixed thing.
Not at all. Realizing this allows us to acknowledge all the different facets of ourselves, the different ways the story could be told, rather than being trapped in one single limiting narrative. It brings huge freedom from past conditioning.
That really is a liberating idea. Wow. Okay, let's get into understanding craving now in this idea of dependent origination. The source makes a crucial point. The experience of craving itself is dukkha,
Yes, it's unpleasant, often felt physically like a pressure, a tension, an ache in the body or heart.
and we often chase the object of craving just to get rid of that unpleasant feeling, right? Without even realizing the internal pressure is the suffering we're trying to escape.
Precisely. So a skillful approach here is to actually turn towards that feeling. Sustain mindfulness on the pressure, the tension, give it space.
Don't just react automatically.
Right. And if you just watch it, give it space, typically the craving and that pressure will intensify, maybe reach a peak, and then naturally subside.
So watching it helps break that cycle of blind grasping. You learn to ride the wave instead of being wiped out by it.
Exactly. It's just a process, impermanent like everything else.
And there's flexibility here too, right? You don't always have to catch the craving right at the very beginning, at the moment of contact.
No, that's another helpful point. Even if your mind is totally lost in what the text calls a thicket of papaññāka.
Papanika, that's the mental proliferation. Like one thought spinning off into 1,000 anxieties and stories.
Exactly that. Even when you're lost in that thicket, you can still tune in to a simpler level, like the raw physical sensation, the vedana, or that basic pressure of craving. Focusing there can help calm the whole complex process of dukkha generation.
It's like finding a simpler thread to pull in a really complicated knot.
A good analogy. And this leads us towards dependent origination, paikāsamuppada. The source stresses something really crucial here. While explanations of dependent origination, how one thing leads to another in a sequence, are incredibly useful.
Showing how suffering arises based on conditions.
Yes. But its ultimate truth points to something even more profound. The total emptiness of all phenomena. Their absolute lack of any true independent foundation.
Whoa. So a radical and complete groundlessness.
That's the phrase used. It's not just abstract philosophy. It means the very basis of what you perceive as solid problems, fixed identities, intractable situations. It's far more fluid, far more empty than you assume.
Which opens up possibilities for change we might not have imagined.
Exactly. It's described as hard to fathom, maybe, but also magical void, revealing the beautiful, unconditioned nature of things beneath the fabricated layers.
Complete groundlessness. That really does challenge our basic assumptions about reality. And it ties straight back to our sense of self, doesn't it? Let's dive into that. The spectrum of self and the idea of the unfindable self. The source says if you pay close attention, you can see your self-sense isn't just one thing. It's on a spectrum.
Yeah, definitely. Sometimes it feels incredibly contracted, solid, separate, maybe like in a moment of intense anger or fear. Very me-focused.
Not like a temper tantrum.
Yeah. Right. And other times, maybe in deep meditation, it can feel very light, spacious. There might only be a subtle sense of awareness, just a knowing, without a strong me attached.
Recognizing that range, that the volume dial on the self can change, is key for insight into emptiness.
Indispensable, the source suggests. And to help explore this systematically, we have the 5 aggregates, the skandhas.
Form, feeling, perception, mental formations, consciousness.
Exactly. They act like a comprehensive checklist. They help you investigate and let go of all the possible places you might be locating or identifying a self, ensuring no stone goes unturned in the search for what you cling to as me or mine.
So you look into each one. Is my body me? Are my feelings me? My thoughts? My awareness?
And you investigate. Are they permanent? Are they truly under my control? Do they constitute a unified, independent self? The answer through investigation is always no.
Which leads to anatta, not self. The realization there's no real inherent self to whom these experiences could actually belong. The source mentions the 7-fold reasoning here as a tool to refute inherent existence.
Yes, it's a powerful analytical method, famously applied to a chariot by Nagarjuna, but applicable to anything, including the self. It asks things like, is the self the same as its parts, the aggregates? Is it different from its parts? Does it possess the parts? Do the parts possess it? Is it the collection of parts? Is it the shape or continuum?
Let's take one. If the self was different or separate from the aggregates,
Then it would be totally disconnected from experience, right? Unapprehendable, like a king completely separate from his kingdom. It wouldn't make sense.
and if it were the continuum of the aggregates, like the whole stream of experiences,
Then, as the reasoning goes, it would barely exist now because most of its supposed continuum All the past moments, all the future ones, they aren't actually present. They don't exist right now.
So by systematically examining all these possibilities,
You dismantle the intuitive gut feeling that there's a solid, findable self hiding in there somewhere.
so the core realization isn't about finding something called emptiness,
Not at all. It's about searching diligently for that inherently existing self and realizing directly that it simply cannot be found.
because it doesn't exist in that way.
It never did. That unfindability is the emptiness of self.
Wow. And it goes even deeper, to the mind itself.
Yes. The source discusses how mind itself lacks any essence. It cannot be found. Not inside the body, not outside, not somewhere in between. Where is the mind located?
You can't pin it down.
Exactly. And then there's the diamond slivers analysis. It's another sharp analytical tool. It basically argues that nothing, no object, no moment, no event arises from itself alone, from something totally other, from both itself and other, or completely without any cause.
It covers all logical possibilities for how something could come into being inherently.
Right. And by showing none of them hold up under scrutiny, it cuts through the perceived thingness of things at the most fundamental level. It dismantles the idea that anything has its own independent power to arise or exist.
That's incredibly profound, almost dizzying. And it seems to lead us beyond just thinking about impermanence, Annika, towards the emptiness of time itself and the malleability of reality. We know attending to moment-to-moment change, Annika, is valuable. Seeing the fluidity, the arising and passing.
It can reveal a real tenderness, a beauty in impermanence, definitely.
But the source makes a critical point. Anicca alone isn't full liberation. Śūnyatā, emptiness, is a more radical, deeper insight.
Precisely. It cautions against getting stuck in just not knowing or only focusing on change. To achieve full liberation, the understanding needs to penetrate to the lack of inherent existence of all phenomena.
And realizing the emptiness of time itself adds another radical dimension.
Absolutely. It suggests that perceptions, objects, they're empty of themselves, partly because there's no real objective container-like time for them to exist within. Time, in this view, is actually fabricated along with the perception of an object or an event. Think about the past or future. Where do they exist, really, apart from as concepts arising in the present moment?
They don't have independent reality.
They don't. So the perception of a solid self, solid things, and solid time, they all prop each other up. They're mutually dependent.
Like three legs of a stool, as you said. If one is empty, the others can't stand independently either.
That's a great way to put it. They all rely on each other, feed each other, and therefore they are all empty of that inherent existence we assume.
So, if perception is malleable, and we gain this insight, we realize that how and what we see aren't just fixed givens.
Exactly. They become, as the source beautifully puts it, the colorable and malleable magical material of empty appearances.
Which means we have agency. We can learn to shape our perception.
Yes, this understanding opens the door to intentionally shaping perception in ways that lead towards freedom, towards compassion, towards wisdom. And crucially, this isn't about stopping thinking or dismissing reason. It's about targeting those really deep, intuitive, often pre-verbal conceptions about how things are, freeing us in relation to our thoughts.
Okay, so just to recap this incredible journey through the source material, by learning to cultivate these new ways of looking at our experience, we can potentially move from being trapped by habitual perceptions that cause suffering.
Towards realizing the profound emptiness, the groundlessness of ourselves, of other phenomena, and even of time itself.
It really highlights a path towards a radical kind of freedom.
Indeed it does. It's a profound shift in view.
So a final thought for you, the listener, to ponder. If our most fundamental perceptions, and even the very fabric of time, are not fixed objective realities, but are instead malleable, empty, what incredible possibilities does that open up? How might that change how you choose to experience your life, your relationships, your own path towards freedom? How might you experiment even today with your own ways of looking, knowing the creative power held within your own mind?